great chat and follow us on the state of terrestrial TV. The BBC, ABC in Australia, and the CBC in Canada gets a mention too. Has the DEI agenda ripped them apart? Has going woke made them broke? Is the way the BBC is managed and organised and currently run going to ruin our show, Doctor Who, any further? If this is the type of debate and decent discussion you want to see on Doctor Who and other topics, give us a like, make sure you subscribe, and show your support. And let's do it. Thanks. Buckle down for the heated debate. Don't start me on smoggy Queens about my hometown. Too late. The fall of the BBC and ABC and how this might affect our TV programme too. All bets are off. So Thread, deliver. Where are we with the BBC? Should it have a license? Why is it doing so badly? Now, I just want to show the lads why I actually even brought this up at this present moment, just so you can see there is actually a reason. So, if I just show you this. Andrew Neil, one of our, he used to, be the editor of the Times, etc. BBC has not created a new TV hit for 5 years, according to the National Audit Office. Its commercial division makes most of its money from old shows that were first released decades ago. Of the BBC's 10 most profitable shows last year, only one, a soft drama from 2019, was created by BBC Studios, while 3 were bought from rival producers. And he just goes on. Let me just click on the right thing there. Sorry, I apologize. I've gone on the wrong thing there. So that he said that. If I just clicked on the wrong thing, I apologize. So
would Doctor Who be classed as something that was bought from a rival producer, considering it's made by Bad Wolf?
I think that's still seen as in-house.
Okay.
But it's a concern, isn't it, that the BBC's output, and I know this because I use the BBC iPlayer a fair bit for repeats of stuff, Two Doors Down, various stuff like that. I'm trying to find comedies that are still funny, and I have to go back in time. So basically, yeah. So, like I said to the thread and to you two lads, we're talking about the state of terrestrial TV. Why is it in such a bad place? Why is the past still where the profit is really? What's going on, and how is it going to affect our Doctor Who show?
Well, the good stuff they're not even allowing you to buy. They're effectively. If you for all the crying about fascism in the last few months with the US election, the irony is, my attitude is, if you have TV and movies and videos that you don't put on the internet, don't make available, and then refuse to sell or make available on streaming services, then that's the equivalent of book burning, in my view.
Yeah.
If you're locking it up.
That's very, very well said. Yes.
Yeah. Yep. Book burning, Fahrenheit 451. And yes, censorship we should be very careful of. And actually, but the censorship's now, it's quite sinister and insidious, because the censorship is happening by not appointing certain writers, not appointing certain people's ideas in the first place.
Well, there you go too. Yeah, that is happening. We know that's happening.
So, where do you stand on this, Doug? Just as we're all just viewers, aren't we? And we've seen the ABC and we've seen the BBC, to name but two, decline really. And in this country now, the argument of getting rid of the license fee is louder than ever.
Yeah, it's. I feel like, well, I guess being in Australia, the example of the BBC that we see is basically purchased by the ABC or other local stations, so we don't get the viewing experience you do. But I feel like the BBC and the ABC don't really speak to me, but I guess, I don't know if they're aiming at me. But then there's often a joke, isn't there, that particularly in Australia, the ABC is aimed at people my age. But then if that's what's happening, I don't feel like it's speaking to me. And there's certainly no content that resonates with me. I mean, I was looking when you told me about the subject tonight. I was looking at some of the classic BBC shows, things like Blackadder, Faulty Towers, Only Fools and Horses, um, and those sort of shows. And Red Dwarf, maybe to a certain extent, because they're remaking them. But I think, to be honest, Red Dwarf doesn't gel with me as much as it used to. Yeah, I feel like what's being made now just doesn't speak to me.
Well, it's like the
And obviously, DEI has to be part of it, but I think also the
yeah.
subject matter just doesn't speak to me.
I mean, there's a lot to talk about, and we'll try and dive into it. And Thread, you help us out as much as you can here because it's a
Yeah,
big
please.
topic, and I think it's apt. Um, I think that the BBC is trying to ride two horses at the moment. So, for example, you know what they're delivering, like Doctor Who, the diet of this, that, and messaging and everything, and plenty of programs are doing that sort of thing. I'll mention Smoggy Queens soon. Don't worry again,
Yeah,
because that is irritating me no end.
I know.
So that's their current diet. But on BBC Three and Four, they are showing repeats of old comedies. And so it's kind of, hold on a minute here. Are you giving us domestic stereotypes where the woman's in the kitchen? Gosh, shock horror. I mean, the good life, really. I mean, the good life I love, but the good life, Tom gets his own way.
Absolutely.
Um, Now, I'm not saying, please don't censor anything. Please don't take it off. But the point is, it's them who are pious, not me. The BBC are trying to say we're inclusive, we're all about representation, we're being very progressive. Well, actually, the good life and stuff like that is not. But I love it because it isn't. Um,
Mm.
but surely you can't say, right, well, have you noticed that trans character in Doctor Who? And have you noticed we've got our first black doctor? And have you noticed this? And have you noticed that? Aren't we amazing?
Yeah,
Meanwhile,
but
we're going to show you the good life.
what the pearl clutches are missing is the fact that it's so wrong is what makes it funny. It's the
Yes,
truth.
absolutely.
The truth is what makes comedy. If you the fact that you know that Tom's getting his own way, that's what
Mm.
makes it. That's part
Mm.
of the humor.
That's right.
And
That's right.
and and if you want people to evolve, you need to encourage them to think critically about stuff. And if they're watching it and they're not laughing, it's because it's not funny.
Now, and I want to
Absolutely.
make something clear here because David Harding's in Toronto. Yes, you are correct in assuming that the ABC in Australia that Boomer Doug is referring to is a publicly funded national broadcaster like the
Yes,
BBC
it
in the
is.
UK and like the
Yes,
Yes.
it is.
CBC. So we're actually talking about the death of maybe public service broadcasting because they all seem to think that there's a message that has to get in the way of drama. I personally
Yes.
think. Um,
Yes.
but you mentioned DEI as an example, Doug.
Yeah.
Have you got
That's
any terrible examples that you would come to mind that it just seemed unnecessary?
Well, the obvious one was the character of Rose in Star Beast, I guess. But I think, how can I put this? I think to have the characters, diverse characters in any drama or comedy is fantastic, but let's not signpost it. Let's just make them part of the landscape and not draw attention to it specifically. And it's like in our real world. Let's be diverse, but let's not um, make it an obvious thing.
Well, it's
Let's
like
not
it's
preach
like
about it.
well, it's like when Freema Agyeman was Martha Jones. I thought less was made of it then. I feel as though if she was now the companion now, they'd make more of it. Um, and that's something that's changed. Martha Jones was just she's become a great character. Like I said, I thought given your first black companion, the unrequited love narrative was not a good idea, RTD. It was not. Just like
No,
making the first
it
black
was
lead, doctor, making him a crying emotional wreck isn't a good idea either.
no. Well,
You know,
let's be honest. I wasn't going to go there, but my opinion is that Shooty Gatwa was a DEI casting. I refuse to believe that he was the best person for the role, based certainly on what I've seen of him, and that annoys me. It needs to be the best character. I guess you could say the same about the Jodie Whittaker character. It was a gimmick. It was a gimmick, pure and simple.
it's
They
just
didn't need to go there.
It's just I can't, in all honesty, say that when you've had 15 doctors and different actors, the Jodie Whittaker being the first female doctor wasn't the best female actor you could have had, and wasn't the
No,
best
absolutely
female
not.
representation, and neither has Shooty been not that a black doctor and a white doctor should be any different, but
No,
because
absolutely,
because
absolutely.
he is the first black doctor, make him as strong and decisive and
Yeah,
brilliant
that's
as
my
the other
point.
doctors,
Yeah.
but he's not.
He
He's
wasn't the
been
best
Mm.
one for the role. No,
no.
that's my point. I don't care what race or gender the doctor is, but I strongly believe both those castings were gimmicks. I mean, I'm pretty sure that Jodie was cast because she worked with Chris Chibnall previously, um, and I'm pretty sure Shooty was cast because RTD fancied him. If I'm honest, but
I mean,
yeah,
casting
cast the
maybe.
best person.
Yeah,
Cast the
Mads
best
McCann.
person.
Wouldn't it be fantastic to realize a character is trans 10 episodes in, not in episode 1, with a big bloody
Yes,
signpost?
yes, that's my point. Make it natural. Make it evolve naturally. Don't just hit us over the head with it.
And so this
No.
is where we are worried we are with the BBC and ABC and wondering why it's failing, as Andrew Neil said.
Mm,
So,
Mm.
as a bit of evidence, just because I'm not just kind of grifting here or baiting people. There was a book, The Noble Liar, by Robin Aitken, and he went into a bit of detail. And just wondering if there's any resonance with Toronto and the CBC, David, and with ABC, Doug and Dan. So I'll just show you one or two elements. I'll go bigger because that would be fairer, wouldn't it? Um, so basically, if I go big screen, the cliched critique of the BBC is that it is a nest of lefties which promotes a progressive political agenda and is bedeviled by political correctness. Depressingly, in my experience, the cliche comes uncomfortably close to the actual truth. The BBC really does promote a never acknowledged political agenda.
Well, they've got a DEI policy for a start. I
that's right.
mean,
It is acknowledged. Yeah, there is a policy.
yeah, I mean, it's of course it's close to the truth. You can see, like, I'll give you a good example. So I'm a paying customer. I mean, the BBC and the ABC have made missteps in terms of dismantling their distribution and physical media. I think they jumped the shark on a lot of that. I mean, and especially now, I think we're about to have a resurgence on physical media, which we're
Mm,
seeing in a number of other forms.
mm,
Especially now that streaming services are starting to fail, um, there's going to be a consolidation, and I think ultimately a failure. So physical media is probably going to bounce back in the next few years. But put that aside, um, so I'm a paying customer. I wanted to enjoy BBC TV here in Australia, so I subscribed to BritBox because I heard that they had put the goodies episodes up. Now there's 10 seasons of the goodies, and we all grew up on them on repeat.
mm.
And funnily enough, you wouldn't see them repeated today. But 9 seasons were done by BBC, one season was done by ITV.
Yeah.
And anyway, I get into BritBox, and I start looking for the episodes, and like the seasons only have a couple of episodes in them, and then it's like, oh, the Ralph Harris episode, oh, they pulled that down,
I
or
bet
they
they
didn't
did.
put it up. And so they went through it. Basically, there's almost no episodes there. Anything that had anything remotely offensive or something that could be construed as offensive. Now, to me, you should put the whole lot up there, and you should
Absolutely.
have the courage of your conviction
The thing is,
and cop the blowback.
well, I mean,
Absolutely.
I assume that well, I would hope it's not a royalties issue, and is it just a virtue signaling kind of a look issue? I mean,
No, it's not a royalties issue, because, and I can guarantee that, because I think the network DVD person, there was a guy that was basically buying the rights to publish things on to DVD. Not only did he buy the rights to put them out on physical media, but he actually paid for the restoration of the episodes to get them to DVD quality.
Oh, okay.
And so I ended up purchasing the physical media, because and it's got all the stuff that you will not find it,
It's just
on the
just
streaming service.
my frustration with them making these censorship choices. You know, they've just taken Hugh Edwards out of a tiny moment from Fear Her and all this stuff, and you think you can't change history. What's done is done. If
Yeah,
mistakes
that
are
was
made, mistakes are
stupid.
made. Because
Yep.
one, I mean, you mentioned Rolf Harris, and yeah, I'm not going to go into all that allegation stuff, but what I will say is Rolf Harris, the moment he had a documentary with the Queen when he painted her, and you actually,
Yep.
the Queen was really quite chilled, and you learnt a lot from her reactions. And if that program's never going to be shown now, we lose something. Can't
Yep.
we be
Mm.
big enough to watch them? And I'm not saying you need to put a banner underneath saying Rolf Harris did this, that, and the other. We, God, if if bliss, you know, they say ignorance is bliss. People could watch the
Mm.
Mm.
program going, "Gosh, the Queen! I never knew the Queen talked like that," and not know
Yeah.
that Rolf Harris was anything or anything. Does it matter? It's happened. He actually went to jail, so there you go. I mean, punishment was
Mm.
delivered. So why do
Mm.
we have to be doubly punished by taking programs off where you might actually learn about a historical figure like the Queen? I just think
Yeah.
sometimes it gets a bit silly because you're not changing history, are you, by banning the program? You
Mm.
haven't changed it.
No, no.
No,
Don't
I
whitewash
mean,
it. Don't,
it's the same
love it.
argument for people that think that, regardless of what you think, certain musicians or whatever, you can't go wiping their music off the
No.
face of the earth, because that music transcends the artist once the work is created. And it's the same thing I think we were debating the other week about, the writers and the distribution rights. My attitude is you've got actors, you've got production crews, you've got all sorts of people that have put effort into a program, and what it gets pulled off, it gets wiped because one person they find out retrospectively one person did something wrong. That doesn't make any sense.
It
No.
doesn't, because you're going to wreck all of art, because it's risky, isn't it? That some temples or buildings that are ancient may have been built by people who had dodgy backgrounds. In fact, the chances are very strong. But we're not going to
Yep.
take everything down just because we don't know. It
No.
just gets silly. It gets silly. I make the argument in Britain when everyone goes on about the slave trade. I'm going, okay, then flatten Bristol, flatten Liverpool, flatten Glasgow, because apparently most of them buildings are built on that money. So if you really want to go there, get flattening, and me and Mads McCam in the northeast will be part of the renaissance of the northeast, where we are guilt free. Morgan
Yeah.
Dean, separate the art from the artist. Well, yeah, I think we're big enough to do that, aren't we?
Yeah.
Mm.
Let's be grown-ups.
So, by the way, I was trying to put it up, and I was hoping you could see it, because you Aussies know what Stephanie's talking about or not. It's interesting that the
Yes, we
ABC's most,
do.
yeah,
Yes, we do. It's a very funny show, and he's very politically incorrect. And it is interesting that I think it's actually the top-rating show on the ABC. So there's proof that it doesn't have to be DEI and tiptoeing around
Politically
expectations.
incorrect is usually just another word for
Saying what's
a
on your
hard
mind.
truth or a stereotype,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
find
exactly.
finds its it finds itself in the fact that it is a reflection of truth. If it wasn't true, it wouldn't be funny.
yeah.
It
I
also
agree.
wouldn't
I
be
think
offensive.
absolutely. My big problem has always been the tendency now that if somebody disagrees with you or something is said to be inappropriate, the person is cancelled. I mean, as my dad used to say, God bless him, everyone has the right to be a dickhead. I mean, there are two opinions or more to every subject. But it seems like we're whitewashing everything, and the book burning analogy previously was just spot on.
Mm.
I feel like generations after ours are not even going to know the true history of the world.
Yeah,
Yeah, because
What's
some idiots come along and tried to
yeah,
judge. You can't. I
yeah,
remember doing a university course years and years ago about the history of the universe and creation myths, um, and one of the things we were talking about heavily back then was you can't assess someone's creation story based on current day
Yeah.
knowledge and values. You've got to look at it in the context of the time in which it was created.
Absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
I mean, it's a hell of a good debate, and I'm trying to link it to Doctor Who in different ways so we can be relevant as well. But if I'll carry on with this, the noble kind of liar, right through the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and indeed right up to the present day, the BBC has instinctively allied itself with any campaign which is transgressive. Most importantly, this book contains how it is that the BBC has become so deeply hostile to social conservatism. That way of thinking, shared by tens of millions of us, which values a traditional moral code that emphasizes virtues like patriotism, self restraint, and decency. And this is where, as you know, the Star Beast, it's in my head at the moment. So many parents found that whether it is a worthy message, the trouble was it's unsettled business, and some parents didn't want their children to be hearing a message about a
Mm,
trans child. That was the
Mm,
issue. Why do the BBC and possibly the ABC feel as though they have to go there? And this evidence
mm,
here, the BBC's relentless hostility towards Donald Trump is a recurrent theme. I find it difficult to recall any single BBC report on Trump which portrayed him in a positive light. And then it goes on to say the same happened with Brexit. And so you've got the BBC, and you can tell me about the ABC in a minute. And I'm sure when you did your vote on the Aboriginal rights, where did the ABC stand? Because I know most of the Australian media went on one side, didn't they? They didn't say here's two
uh,
sides to this.
the, the parallels with the US election and the media coverage and what happened to us with The Voice is very similar. I mean, the ABC was running it up the flagpole pretty much from the moment it was announced. Um, you know, I mean, I used to be a big ABC watcher, especially
same.
when they had the News 24/7 channel. But it got to the point where it was like they had a checklist of everyday live broadcasts where they would literally just have all these talking points that were on repeat, and they would just bring in personalities, and then the personalities from different political persuasions got removed, and it
Mm,
was basically very much a one-sided. And it's interesting because I believe you guys have got people in the BBC saying no, 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 we're actually the BBC is quite right wing, and the general public be going,
Oh
no, it's not. That's
no, I mean,
just crap.
I,
And then we've got the same problem here. We're trying to battle with the ABC to get it realigned so that it's more balanced.
well, obviously, I linked the BBC and ABC up because when I lived in Australia, and you can tell me better, but the ABC seemed to be just a slightly lower budget. I'm sorry to say that version of the BBC, which has a lot of money
mm.
behind it. Let's be honest. You were you were
Yeah,
Yeah,
you were
that's
a
true.
smaller
Yeah,
population, weren't you? So that, but
yeah.
and the
Big fun.
ABC seemed to reflect a lot of the BBC. And remember, the BBC used to be referred to as anti. Now,
Mm,
anti. I was saying to Doug the other day, it's no longer anti, it's frosty knickers. It's a brutal nanny now.
yeah.
It's a stroppy, it's a step aunt that you don't want to meet. It's that
Mm,
dodgy dinner lady now. I really don't think the BBC is a friendly, warm, arm around the shoulder auntie. It was always patronizing, let's be honest. Listen with mother. I mean, listen to the phrase, listen with mother. But here, they talk about there is a solemn covenant that lies at the heart of the BBC's relationship with the country. In return for the license fee revenue, it promises to tell the truth and to be impartial on all matters of public debate. And there's where he calls it the noble lie. Now, you can tell me about ABC. David Harding can tell me about CBC. The BBC was, I've just shown you, was not on the run. It wasn't neutral on Brexit. It wasn't neutral on Donald Trump. It's not neutral on lots of subjects that at the moment are unsettled. And then
no.
I link it to Doctor Who and go, I really don't want you to risk wrecking what should be a safe family show.
Mm,
yeah.
It's all right. I'm challenging you here. Now, just before we kind of develop this a bit more, Peter Hitchens had a brilliant article on the BBC, and I'm saying this because I know it has resonance with the ABC. Um, and if I just put it on the big screen for everybody for a second, why is it he was saying that the BBC ends up showing shows about divorce, homosexuality, abortion, and all three at once. Satire, so-called, spreads its spiky wings. Even my mother's favourite radio serial, Mrs. Dale's Diary, suddenly had the musings of a doctor's wife on progressive themes. The words call girl and profumo were mentioned. And he said, and yet the voice it was delivered in was always calm, educated, unashamedly middle class, and predominantly English. And the point is, it kind of again has it both ways. Everybody's going mad about a doctor's episode. I mean, it's on during the day, and I didn't see it. But if I could just get to the moment, I mean, here we go. Phil Burrough, does the BBC or ABC inform? Does it educate? Does it entertain? The answer, like Family Fortunes, I was going to show you, and I'm just going to get to it now, just so I'm fair on the score. Oh gosh, yes, it was. There we go. Here we go. From the BBC soap opera Doctors, a GP's 14-year-old daughter invites a boy who was sexually interested in her for a sleepover. The concerned father finds out the boy is gender fluid and a victim of hate speech, so stops worrying and invites him to sleep in her bed whenever he wants. That's apparently, yeah, I know, and this is where you've got our impartial, the noble lie, that with license-free money is actually delivering a message. I think a lot of parents would go, "Well, what?" And this is called progressive, and these are the people. Yeah, well, Doug, these are the people who are making Doctor Who as well.
I know. I don't have words. I'm sorry.
It just
Any words I
sounds,
do have
yeah.
probably get you cancelled. So I'm going to just observe. I'm shocked at that.
And so when we talk about the fall of the BBC and the fall of ABC and possibly the fall of CBC, is there do we have to explain how many people in Great Britain who actually, because they're lucky that not many people will have watched Doctors, how many people would find that offensive, troubling, and say, I really don't want that on?
To be honest, you'd question the values of the program probably, but I mean, but taxpayers' money's having to go into producing this stuff as well. I mean, if that was the ABC making that, that's the thing that. So we don't pay a license here for US and British audiences. We in Australia we literally have our income tax diverted to pay for Auntie with the ABC. So we don't have any choice. They get the money, and this is the problem. They get the money regardless of what's produced and regardless of the ratings. There's no KPIs, and they just produce. If the chair and the board let them produce it, they'll produce it. And if it doesn't reflect society, people just don't tune in, and that's why the ratings have dropped off a cliff.
But this is the other thing. I mean, and David Harder makes a good point here. It sounds like the ABC and BBC are playing things way too safe, and that stifles creativity. You're never going to get the next great show if you're always pulling your punches. And this is the thing; they should be out there. I don't think the Doctor's episode is that what we have in mind, but
then they're not playing it safe. They have an agenda. They are activists, and that's evident when you watch them. I think someone said that the BBC sees us as the great, I think it was Paul Richards says, the BBC sees us as the great unwashed. They feel they sound like they're morally superior. It's similar to what we saw in the US election. I think there's a real common thread here in terms of a political class that just think they're better than the rest of us, and they think that we all need educating.
Yeah, I mean, and look, and I'm gonna throw the examples at you to show you how they don't get it right though. It's well known that the BBC, believe it or not, the BBC turned down remaking All Creatures Great and Small over fears it would not speak to a younger audience. No, they're no better. And to link to David Harding's point, I think in a way they're playing safe by accident, by default, because the people who are making programs aren't great entertainers.
Mm,
It's a kind of accountancy exercise.
mm,
They have policies, but they don't have an entertainment brain or skill. And unfortunately, you've got people who are saying their version of entertainment is basically polemic. So when they had the chance, and remember, they're famously, I know in Australia and America, All Creatures of Great and Small was really popular. Um,
mm.
and suddenly Channel 5 took it and it became a massive hit again because in a way the BBC were playing some other safe game, which is, oh, that's not
Mm.
our people. They got it wrong. They don't
They
understand
did
their
it.
own people.
It's quite a nice little show. The remake, I've watched it. It's quite well done.
Yeah.
It's
And of course
it's a bit feel good, but it's lovely. Yeah.
it teased me up. I can't help it. If we're discussing
Yeah.
um
Come on,
let's say,
let's bring this one on.
how is this playing it safe? They think it's safe because they're safe from criticism. This is what safety is, David Harding, in a way. They are ticking so many boxes that they are safe from being accused of doing anything that seems regressive. But I am from Middlesbrough, and the Smoggy Queens, which is going to be a 6-part comedy, is not reflecting anything I recognize. Therefore, it's not even representation. It's a fantasy. Therefore, it's an imposition of a code, of a moral, of a message from a metropolis somewhere else that doesn't even know where Middlesbrough is, to be quite honest. Um, I find it so irritating. Now, on our Sunday show, I showed this, but you couldn't really see the synopsis. Take a look at some of these episodes. This is supposed to be a northeastern town. A drag queen becomes obsessed with winning a Submissive of the Month title at a local dungeon, roping the lesbian into an absurd training regime involving yoga, blah, blah, blah.
So, where's your local dungeon, Brendan? Where's the local dungeon in your
Shh,
area
shh,
then?
I haven't told Jamie. I don't know. I don't know. It's a shed. It's like Wolf Creek. Mistress Makeover. The group decides to transform the alcoholic lesbian into a glamorous dom. What's this got to do with working class? What's this got to do with being an industrial
Nothing.
town? What's this got to do
Nothing.
with anything? The
It
latex,
sounds like it should be on Pornhub, to be honest.
yeah. The latex fiasco. One queen is asked to perform at a BDSM latex fashion show, but gets stuck in their custom outfit. Oh, that's a laugh. You
It's
know,
no are you being served, is it?
no. And so just so everybody knows, we are using examples. This is a current example. Um, the whips and giggles, I think, is a disgrace. A drag queen accidentally brings a riding crop to a children's story hour performance. The ensuing
As you do.
scandal forces the gang to infiltrate a local BDSM club to borrow a replacement crop with less. Oh, that's so funny. It's run on so many levels. The comedy is that they took an adult thing into a children's sphere. But we have all been arguing that shouldn't be happening ever. Not by
Mm.
accident, because why is a drag queen seen as better for reading stories? I was saying to Doug the other day, when we were at primary school, did you have some auntie, some grandma, some dinner lady would do some bit extra, and they'd sit with a kid one-to-one. The kid read, and they corrected you. Suddenly, the idea is the drag queen, it's a big performance, reads to kids. I'm an English teacher. It's the wrong way around. The kid should be practicing reading and be corrected. This is all run on so many levels, and then to make a comedy out of it, you just the screw is loose.
Mm.
Did we
Well,
establish, Brendan, who's writing this crap? Is this
I,
someone that's well known or new on the scene? Do they have a background in stand-up comedy or writing? I mean, who are
the
they
back,
and what's their deal?
I really, I'm going to have to keep researching this. I couldn't find too much, but the point we were trying to come up with, because we're trying to be fair, but the thing is,
Mm,
as I said earlier, the censorship is insidious. I bet you, because I can guarantee it, the writer will be obviously approved, as in we approve the message. You're going to write about
mm.
gay rights. All right, that's great. Oh, you're going to write about the black angle and Windrush. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. You're going to write about a white working class kid. Oh no, I'm
Nobody
sorry,
wants to see that.
but this is why the BBC is failing, because they have picked a program that ticks the box that, oh, we're doing a northeastern town. But having lived in that northeastern town for 56 years,
Yeah,
You
but the people that are writing this have probably got that bent warp reality where they think that half the people actually are that way inclined, which is not right. I mean, there's no way that this would speak to a broader audience.
No.
It's just, I mean, I don't know. I think David Hardin's talking about this Smoggies as well. So long as a show is on at an appropriate time for its content, I don't have a big problem with letting viewers make it a hit. Or I see what you
Well,
mean. We certainly don't want
I
censorship, but what my point, David, is that when the BBC pretends they are representing the nation, they're not very
mm,
good at
Mm.
representing working class. And so they suddenly go,
No.
oh, we're going to do a 6-part comedy drama set in Middlesbrough, northeast town. We haven't done much up there. In fact, I'm being half blooming serious. They don't really know where it is.
Mm.
Oh, yeah. But what they've done is they've taken their metropolitan views and ideologies and thought, yes, we'll have a load of drag queens and BDSM and all that stuff in that town. So win-win. They're not. Right. I tell you what, if they wanted to represent the Windrush generation and how they were treated in the 1950s and 60s, by God, they'd want to make it accurate. Oh, ho, ho. If they wanted to depict certain things in history of the right side of things, they'd want to depict it accurately. But when it comes to representing white working class, no, let's have a bit of a wheeze. Let's twist it. Why? Absolutely why? I'm sorry, that's an insult, that's disrespectful, and it's called fantasy.
yeah, I'd like to make a point that I don't have a problem with any of this getting made. It's not my cup of
Yeah.
tea.
Yeah.
But it's the fact that it's being pushed as though, you're taking taxpayers' money and you're producing this stuff and pretending that it's for the wider audience
Yeah.
while your audience is
Absolutely.
shrinking.
Absolutely.
I mean, the truth is, David Harding, it will have to be shown late at night, I'm guessing. But
Mm.
then you think, so the only time Middlesbrough is represented is late at night with a lie. I mean, what is that? Does that make our terrestrial broadcasters good? So you get all these comments coming through, and I just want to see what your thoughts are on them. So Tezza here says, once known for its period dramas, this is the thing I said earlier. Now it fills them full of ahistorical characters to meet EDI goals, like mini lectures on critical race theory. Similarly, sitcoms and comedies. It has now banned shows it made this side of the millennium for being offensive. The BBC is finished.
Mm.
Eh, Do you have a
Yeah.
problem? I'm not putting words in anyone's mouth. Does everybody in the thread in the panel have a problem with the Isaac Newton example? Changing history
I
and making it historic. Wolf Creek's done the same. Bridgerton.
Yeah, I do. I know there's a fair argument that it's no big deal and for his own reasons, but I strongly believe that when you're representing a real historical character, you should make an effort to respect that historical character and represent them um, at least moderately accurately. I just that bugs me. They can do whatever they want with characters that weren't real. I don't care. But when they
But isn't it?
start like there was what was it on Netflix? Wasn't there a series about Cleopatra and they made her a woman of color or
Yeah,
something and
yeah.
nobody watched it?
Mm.
I mean, what's the deal
Well, I
with that?
suppose she was Egyptian, of course, but maybe
Yeah,
the problem was she'd been made to look like Elizabeth Taylor half the time. But
Well,
that's fair enough.
I'm binge watching. I've been binge watching Cobra Kai this week, and I mean that's a great show. But the reason
Mm,
it's so good is because it actually represents all sorts of perspectives in the one show. You have old school thinking.
absolutely. Yeah.
You have you know current day sort of thinking and values juxtaposed so you can see it all together in a nice melting pot, and it's just
Mm.
entertaining, and it's not trying to
It's
push a
entertaining
message
and
on you.
well written. That's the
Yeah.
difference, isn't it? It's well written.
the thing is, when I showed you that covenant that the BBC takes the license fee off us, which is a tax, to tell the truth. But for example, my example about Middlesbrough being represented in that way is it's not telling the truth that's there. And David
Yeah.
Harding's been saying it. Yes, you have to represent unfortunate truth and convenient truth. You can't just change the truth. I'm sorry, we're not doing 1984 suddenly, are we? So basically, ignorance is truth and all that nonsense. 2 and 2 makes 5. You can't do that. So the truth is, historical Britain looked very white. Depict it like that. If you need to make shows that represent the population as it is now, make them. But you can't suddenly not tell the truth and make the past look completely different.
You've hit a really good point there. One of my big bugbears, I think they call it colorblind casting, when they put characters set, particularly in, I had some examples, but I've forgotten them, but shows set in the past, but they make them diverse in their ethnicity, where as lovely as that is, that wasn't the reality of it. And these shows are not depicting how it was, and that kind of bugs me a little bit. And I know it shouldn't, but it stands out. The characters need to be representative. I mean, we all know the good old days weren't the good old days, but that's just the way they were. Let's not
And it doesn't
make it sound like it's anything else.
But it doesn't win over the audience anyway.
No,
So I mean, just
no.
by doing this and making Anne Boleyn black or something, it doesn't make us go, "Oh, we're all colorblind now." It gets people's backs up.
Yeah, exactly.
And so
Yeah, because you're denying truth.
yes, when you're
Exactly,
twisting,
yeah.
you're twisting the history of a country, and I'd love to see some other countries change their past for the sake of an argument. No, they wouldn't. Paul Richards, Galton and Simpson, I remember Steptoe's Son and all that, had talent, even bringing up social issues, but made them funny. Steptoe's Son,
Well said.
some
Well
would
said.
argue it's almost like a drama, isn't it? Steptoe's Son. It's unbelievable. The
Till Death Do
model
Us
of
Part's another example. Alf Garnett. I mean, he was meant to be an example of a person you weren't supposed to like, but apparently he became so popular because of Warren Mitchell's portrayal. But that was a show that spoke a lot, but it spoke with comedy and good writing.
And you see, you've
now.
got all these suspicions here. The main purpose of BBC dramas is to lecture rather than entertain. The last couple I started, I gave up on very quickly. We don't watch it anymore, and it's not a choice. Then I'm not being ideological. There's nothing that's grabbing me anymore.
But
Doctor Who,
Brendan, if you don't like it, you're a bigot.
well, I don't like the subject
come on.
matter. I'll obviously watch the beginning of Smoggy Queens because I'm a Middlesbrough lad, but that's a different thing, isn't it? I'm just seeing how it's. But I'm not wanting to see a show about drag queens doing BDSM and reading to kids. How does that appeal? And I don't find it funny. I'm an ex-teacher. I don't find it even funny. For some reason, they are making programs to cater for the 2% of the UK population. If they can't see that it only coincides with only 2% of the UK viewers, they have either bad management, poor judgment, or everyone is woke. And is this the same vibe you have in Australia?
This is what bugs me. It used to be about the ratings, didn't it? I mean, the ABC say they don't worry about that, but it's about making programs that appeal to a large group of people, because it's all said and done. It's all about revenue and making money, but obviously the ABC doesn't follow that criteria, and I just don't get it. I mean, what are they trying to do?
There's a particular program on the ABC called Q&A, which is basically an excuse to get politicians from both sides in, and then have controversial figures, and then the audience, they get up and ask questions and stuff.
That's right.
That used to be one of the most highest rating shows in its time slot, and it's just died over the last 10 years because
they watered it down a bit, haven't they?
Well, it just went too one-sided. You basically knew that the audience was all geared one way, and they were there to, kick any right-wing politicians just got kicked, and there was it had lost any debate. It was basically just, woke talking points.
I saw that when I used to live in Australia. I remember that because I thought, it's like Question Time in Britain, if everybody knows what I'm comparing.
Yeah, it's very similar.
But I saw that the Q&A started to go in very, very heavy, very kind of, oh God, it was almost like they were sounding academic. And it was like, here's a theory. And I thought, oh God, this is a little bit, not inaccessible, but just dull.
Mm,
You
mm,
know, you need to get the populace talking about the current issues in your country and actually making it sound
absolutely.
like some university thesis with some
mm.
dry academics. Because I know Q&A in ABC started just sometimes it wasn't a lot of politicians. You started getting lots of academics, and it was like,
Oh yeah, they just
oh,
started getting lots of academic. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's exactly what started happening because
Mm,
because pollies started refusing to come on because it was just it wasn't worth the effort of turning up and just getting slammed by the audience that were clearly
mm,
biased
now
or
you
the
see.
presenter.
No, look,
mm.
while we're having this bit of a kind of, we sound as though we're on the same page on this. Do you know what? I'm going to say it. I'm not going to put the alarm up, but you and the thread, if we think like this, why the hell are we tolerating Doctor Who still being made? Because the risk is it'll be absolutely butchered.
Mm,
Why are we
Mm.
risking it for another season, another season? When I did that survey ages ago, people are
To be
kind of,
f-
oh, I don't want it cancelled. But none of us seem to be disagreeing. We are all, apparently risking it being butchered to pieces. I'll remind everybody what the vote was. 60% of people think RTD is getting it wrong, but only 21% said cancel the Doctor Who show. Maybe reboot it
mm.
17%, 41% said continue, 22% said rest. Look, what we're talking about now seems to be saying take it off fast and save it.
Yeah,
I
it's a
just
tough one, isn't
I
it?
say
Yeah,
save it and
but
keep it on the air.
yeah, I can only speak for myself. I'm an eternal optimist. I keep thinking somewhere down the track it's going to get better, but not with this particular production team. And I know they've got some fresh writers in for season 2, but they've already filmed them, so clearly uh, the stories won't reflect the backlash that's been happening. So we're probably going to get more of the same. I think we're just gluttons for punishment, are we? I mean, I'll keep watching it and I'll keep complaining about it and I'll keep hoping there's going to be something better. But I'm going to see it through to the end, and I suppose a lot of fans are like that. Although I've been quite interested to see a lot of really hardcore fans have jumped ship. I mean, really jumped ship. I mean,
And
I think even
Mm.
you know some, Brendan, that no longer watch the show, and
yeah,
they're also
it grieves me because I'm closer to the exit door, but I can't foresee me. I just can't see it. Having
I
watched
can't make
Doctor
the
Who
jump.
all my life, I
Yeah.
can't see me knowing it's on TV, but I won't watch it
Have we got
because,
Stockholm syndrome or something? Is that what it is?
I,
well,
Maybe.
I look. My view is it's really hard to. It's a lot harder to start something than it is to stop something. And I think if it gets stopped, I don't think it's coming back for a really long time.
yeah, yeah.
Mm, not in my
My view
lifetime.
is I'd like we saw the original show reinvent itself oodles of times in its 26-year
Mm.
run, and I think that it's only a couple of key people away from being able to turn around. We see this in all manner of different aspects of our lives. It just needs fresh new leadership.
Mind you, Doug, you were saying to me, and I want to rate it now in our kind of stream. We were talking the other day, and you made a good point about routines and schedules and what we are missing now with public service broadcasting.
Yeah, I mean, it all goes back to that thing about the group experience. I mean, the Saturday night watching Doctor Who. Lovely segue, actually, because I've got a video coming up about Saturday morning cartoons. And for people of a certain age, that was our time to sit down and watch our programs because there was no physical media, there was no streaming. And it's the group experience and having a routine. And your memories and your routine worked out by it's 8 o'clock on a Friday night, so you'd watch a particular program, or to use Doctor Who as an example, Saturday night you'd watch Doctor Who, and there was something comforting about the routine. Now there is no routine, and it's lovely to have the accessibility to watch what we want when we want, but something is lost, and I maybe I'm showing my age, but I really miss that. I love the routine of this enjoy, like when you go to a cinema, which I haven't done for quite a long time, that particularly watching a comedy, that shared experience of enjoyment. that seems to be lacking now, and it's a little bit sad, I think. And
I mean,
that's
because
certainly reflected in terrestrial TV.
yeah, because we were saying, Doug, weren't we, that okay, we're not in denial. There's streamers out there. There's there's
Yeah,
Disney, there's
yeah,
Netflix, of course, and that's part of why Doctor Who and other shows are waning in the ratings, we guess.
yeah,
But on top of that, I get your point about the schedules, and you can reinvent Saturday night TV again. They did it in 2005 on the BBC, and you had Strictly Come Dancing, you had Doctor Who, and all of a sudden the ratings went up. But the other point I
yeah,
wanted to add to Doug's point about, as generations, do we not want any predictability? Because a lot of the people who watch our channel and other channels, that just little YouTube channels, you like a set time. You like to know
mm,
when we're on, even though you can catch us later. So there's still an instinct for routine. But on top
yeah.
of
Very
that,
well said.
the other thing I wanted to say with Doug and Dan is, as well as, Saturday night was this, tea time was the educational kids programs and stuff, that I want predictability back in Doctor Who. I want Doctor Who to be predictably scary and get
Mm,
back to, if the nation, if all of Australia, America, Canada, and Britain, if all the parents knew that Doctor Who, you park the kids there, a bit like you do with a Disney movie while you're doing the washing up, you park the kids there, they're going to be bricking it, their imagination's going to be fired off, then that's good. But if you think Doctor Who's going to be doing strange messaging, Doctor Who's going to be doing things that you're not, you're in charge of. I mean, I know as a teacher, sex education, you need to negotiate with the parents because they have thoughts on how things should be delivered. So, and the same with RE. So suddenly Doctor Who just delivers blah. Well, I'm sorry,
mm,
but that's not a given anymore. And I just think Doctor Who should be predictable. Its job,
mm,
its USP is to scare the kids. That should be
yeah,
what it does.
absolutely, absolutely.
I
Yeah,
mean,
make it
yeah.
mainstream viewing again. Not a sort of a cult niche show. Which it's becoming. I mean, the irony is RTD actually made it a mainstream hit back in 2005 and made it cool again, and people who would never admit to watching Doctor Who were watching it, and it was Saturday viewing, and I think I can't remember what night it was on. It might have been Sunday. Um, but now it's gone from that to this niche show that only hardcore fans watch, or people that are part of the agenda that they're
it
portraying.
and Talons of Wayne Cheyenne raises a good point, but do you know what? I don't have that optimism. He says, to be fair, Trump's election could influence Doctor Who going forward. A lot of entertainment media companies seem to be shifting the narrative because of the election result. The trouble is, Talons of Wayne Cheyenne, is Trump has just been elected for 4 years, so America might do whatever. Britain has just elected a Labour government for the next 5 years, and we're at the opposite end of things. So I don't have much optimism about anything made in Britain. Um, and
Mm,
and even the American companies might think, well, Trump's only there for 4 years, so we can still fight him, we can still argue with him, we can still. So I don't know. I'm not too sure that. I know people are saying, oh, here's the moment, the fight back started. Has it?